I've lived through dark days when I couldn't believe. I heard every kind word as a trick to deceive, trying to find a voice to wish, but ending up with a shout. If you're the one who tells the lie, you're the first to find out.
Thousands of people in Ireland with serious illnesses are severely limited in available treatments. These people now have been made aware of the profound possibilities of medicinal cannabis. Okay, there have been a number of hard-fought cases, remarkably brave people who secured a license. Because that's what you need, apparently, a license. There's a thing called the Compassionate Access Program created by the government, where in collusion with doctors, politicians decide on who can access and who cannot access this life-changing, life-altering, pain-diminishing medicinal cannabis. That law needs to change, and the only way it will change is if we change it. If the people who cannot move, if the people who cannot speak, if the people who are so debilitated by illness, who have nobody advocating for them, recognize that we step up for them and demand a change to that archaic, ignorant law, and make medicinal cannabis and the license for medicinal cannabis accessible and available under every scheme that limits the cost, the prohibitive cost of that person, so that they can engage with the best of their capabilities for the rest of their lives. Then we have got to be the ones who step up and advocate for them.
I'm Ava Barry's mum. My daughter Ava has a condition called Dravet syndrome, which is an intractable form of drug-resistant epilepsy, which basically means for Ava that after her seizures began when she was 4 months old, for the next years from 2010 up to I suppose 2016, Ava was experiencing recurring seizures. She would have, some days she would have 10 tonic-clonic seizures a day, which are the more dramatic seizures where you fall to the ground. Other days she could have up to 20. Alongside those seizures, she has all other different types of seizures as well, the absences and the other more, I suppose, not quite as noticeable, but certainly by no means no less serious types of seizures. Ava progressed through nearly a dozen different anti-epileptic medications over the course of the years. Some were completely useless and made no effect or improvement to Ava's quality of life at all. Other medications may have worked temporarily for a little while, but then they began to fail, and the seizures kind of broke back again, and once they broke back, the medication would work no longer. So there was periods of Ava's life when she was 3-4 years old that she was on up to 15 different tablets a day, 4 and 5 different types of anti-epileptic medications, none of which was working. Because the Dravet is so rare, I suppose we started looking into other treatments or other groups or forums where you could talk about it, and that led us to England and then specifically to America really, and Canada, where we saw that people were being treated with medical cannabis. And I didn't know anything about cannabis, and I thought that was amazing, and I started to look into it, particularly the story of Charlotte Figge, who was having up to 300 seizures every day, and at one point Charlotte was placed on a do not resuscitate list, and as time was going on, after my daughter Ava experienced an 8-day coma, she had a heart attack, and And we were looking at Charlotte's story, and I suppose we were thinking that's the direction that we're going if we don't do something. Because when we read about Charlotte had started the medical cannabis and her seizures had subsided. And I looked at this little girl and other children, you know, there's another little girl called Hayley, other children over, and I said, you know what, Ava has to have this, because this is maybe Ava's only chance. Preparing to go to Holland was like jumping into a deep, cold pool of water that we didn't know where to go, we didn't know who to contact. We just had to dive in and try and find it out, because there's nobody really there to advise you. We got onto the Transvaal pharmacy in The Hague. We got help from the Transvaal. We had to find a doctor. We had to find a neurologist. We had to move. But the thing is, not only did we have to move, my husband and myself and my daughter Ava, but we couldn't break up our family. We had to explain to the other 3 children, who were 5 and 4 and 2, that we're going to Holland and try and make it an adventure and try and make it fun. And anyway, we packed up our car on the 17th of June last year. We filled the car with our belongings, filled the roof box that we borrowed from our neighbour up in Rylan, and we drove to Dublin with our children, and we left my mother here. We left my mother here alone and broken-hearted that we had to go, but she knew that we had to leave, because if we didn't go and get it, it wasn't going to last.
My name is Dave. I'm the father of 2 grown-up children. I suffer from PLS. It's a motor neuron disease. The sister disease of ALS. 2 or 3 weeks ago, I started taking cannabis oil. The difference in me is unbelievable. I'm not going to be cured of anything. It's not going to make it easier for me to talk or walk or anything. It's a mechanism for coping with this. All I can say is that the last 2 weeks have been amazing. I can't get my head around the changes in me.
My name is Kenny Tynan. I'm a 37-year-old man from Roscommon. I'm a father of 4 boys. I was diagnosed with a brain tumour in 2015, and after surgery I was diagnosed with a recurrence, and at that point I was offered chemotherapy and radiation therapy. Due to my own experience with my own mother with chemotherapy and radiation therapy, I decided against it. And having researched the benefits of medicinal cannabis, I asked my doctors in Beaumont would they prescribe it for me, to which I was refused. At this point, I made the decision to go to Spain, to the Calapa clinic, where I could obtain medical cannabis to treat my tumour. I spent 3 months in Spain, away from my family, away from my kids, and when I came back, my wife arranged a scan up in Beaumont, and I went for that scan last February 2018 and got the results a couple of weeks later. And as I walked into the room, my neurosurgeon said, "Ken, good news for you, your scan is good. There's been no progression in the tumour since your last scan in October 2016. And I says to him, "Well, you know what I've been doing, you know what I've been at, you know I've been taking medical cannabis, and should I continue on doing it?" And he said, "Yes, but you'll have me struck off the board yet." So in the meantime, I had a friend in Spain that I met while I was over there, that would send over my medicine to me, and one particular package recently got intercepted in the Dublin Mail Centre by Customs and Excise, and I got a letter out from them saying that it was 50 grams of cannabis resin, and I called them back up and says no, it was 50 mils of my medicine, my life-saving medicine, 50 mils of 10% THC. This medicine for me is saving my life, and I am looked upon as a criminal in this country. That shouldn't be the way. We're patients, not criminals.
My son was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma in 2015. He received 6 months of chemotherapy. Near the end of his treatment, we discovered the Truth About Cancer documentary series, which uncovered a number of natural cancer treatments, one of which was cannabis THC oil. We also watched a documentary called The Scientist about Professor Raphael McCoolums, the world's foremost cannabis researcher. He was the first doctor to isolate THC and CBD. My son's cancer came back in 2017 when he was 22, and this time he would have aggressive chemotherapy with a stem cell transplant and radiation. The chemotherapy would kill his immune system, and he would be at risk of getting infections until the stem cell transplant started to work and bring back his immune system. I had seen Minister Simon Harris on a news programme talking about people being allowed to apply for a licence for medical cannabis for certain health reasons, one of which was chemotherapy-induced vomiting and nausea. I wrote to Minister Harris's office and got the application form for the licence. The application had to be signed by a hospital consultant, but no consultant would sign the form because cannabis is an illegal substance and they have no training in its application.
How's it going? My name is Patrick Bradley, and I suffer with a condition called ankylosing spondylitis, which is a chronic pain and fatigue thing that comes from my spine, and it causes my spine to fuse. I'm married with 3 kids, and I've walked up till 8 years ago until I couldn't walk anymore due to the pain. I went to see a lot of specialists in James's Hospital and Tala Hospital, which they just supplied me with a cocktail of different drugs which didn't really work, and I started overdosing on these drugs which nearly killed me at one time, and the pain got that bad that I was actually contemplating suicide. So I had to take the next step, which I thought was looking for the cannabis oil, which I took for 1 week, and with immediate effect it transformed my life. It got rid of the pain 80% and the fatigue went completely. And now that when I need it only 3 times a week, and it's actually a miracle drug for me, and it's had to get me quality of life back. Brilliant. I'm starting to enjoy life again with it. So I'd like this country to bring in legalisation for it, for the likes of myself, to have a quality of life.
My name is Jerry Sparrow. I have stage 4 COPD, emphysema and asthma, so that brings many other bits and pieces with it. But I was in hospital for about 7 months this year and took all the drugs I was given, which didn't work. So then I reverted to herbs again and cured myself with herbs. And then when I come out, I also found the other herb, medical cannabis, which I use, which opens my chest. It also helps me sleep, gives me an appetite. Apart from that, it helps your mentality. It brings you alive and gives you the... I can cycle on my bicycle to Tala, from Tala down to Clondalkin and back up in 40 minutes. I've got stage 4 emphysema, stage 4 COPD, and doctors tell me I have to sit down and take it easy. But you know, many things inspire us in this life, and I think herbs are part of nature and part of the whole thing. And certainly cannabis makes my life much easier, much more pleasant, and relieves me of the pain of arthritis, which I also suffer from. A lot has to do with the steroids that have been kind of pumped into me over the years through pharmaceutical medication, excuse me. So it's just ludicrous not to legalize. There's so many people suffering, so many children suffering. I'm suffering. I have to go in the streets and go in places that are dangerous. I've been mugged, I've been robbed, I've been sold rubbish, tea, all sorts of ridiculous things. You put yourself in a very dangerous position for something that should be legalized for all of us, for your sake.
Hello, my name is Stefano. I'm from Italy. I'm in Ireland 18 years, and I'm here to explain to you my experience with in the using of medical cannabis. A few years ago, I had an accident in work in which I damaged my lower back. After that, I had 2 operations for a disc prolapse. But unfortunately these operations were unsuccessful, and I developed some scar tissue around my sciatica nerve in form of fibrosis, and this is creating me a lot of uncomfortable feelings. I have a chronic pain in my lower back that radiates also on my right leg, so I experience pins and needle, numbness, tightness in the muscle, and again chronic pain in my lower back. At first I've been prescribed tablets called Lyrica. These tablets they're used for epilepsy, but honestly they were not giving me the full benefit. I had plenty of side effects. Actually these tablets, they have 2 pages of list of side effects. I was not sleeping well, I was developing headache and so on. So I was familiar with recreational cannabis, but then I went into studying and make a good knowledge about the plant itself, and I'm using at the moment, and cannabis on the form of oil. And the benefits I've been having from using cannabis are amazing. My pain, my symptoms have been reduced drastically, and also I must say I feel much better as a human being. My head feels better, I feel more relaxed, and I get plenty of sleep.
My name is Dr. Garrett McGovern, and I'm a GP addiction specialist and medical director of the Priority Medical Clinic in Dundrum. I treat a wide range of addictions, both alcohol, substance, and also process addictions like gambling. There are many people in this country who suffer from chronic medical illnesses. So there are illnesses like epilepsy, multiple sclerosis, cancer, depression, anxiety. And there's a wide range of complaints. It is these people who conventional medicine, I don't like to say has failed, but for whatever reason, conventional medicine hasn't worked in their cases. And they've turned to many different other interventions. And medicinal cannabis is probably well down the line. But what we now know from what's a burgeoning evidence base about medicinal cannabis is that this plant, people don't like to call it a drug, has medicinal properties. And there's no doubt, following from the findings of the Barnes report, that this plant can certainly help people with those illnesses. It would appear to me that the drug is effective, and certainly more effective than many of the medications that are out there that have not worked for these people. I want to be very clear on this and state this emphatically. This is for people where conventional medications have not worked. What we know about medicinal cannabis is the side effect profile is pretty much negligible. The same cannot be said of conventional medicine, where side effects often are so debilitating that they're almost as bad as the disease. We have a situation in Ireland where there is a spirit of more rational drug policies. We're looking at opening the first supervised injecting room. Probably should have opened last year, but hopefully the tender process is over and it's looking like it'll be open this year. We're looking at decriminalising people for small amounts of possession of drugs. And obviously we're looking at medicinal cannabis to be used by people who have medical illnesses that are causing them debilitating symptoms. This medication needs to be made accessible.
Hi, my name is Mark Cleary and I'd like to introduce you to my partner's mother. Her name is Geraldine Martin. She's been living in Spain for the last 11 years and she went to Spain with some health issues and has been doing really well, but at the beginning of 2017 she was diagnosed with pneumonia, a really bad case of pneumonia. We had to rush her to hospital, she was so sick. And while she was in hospital they discovered she had a tumour on her lung. But the pneumonia was so bad they needed to get her right first. It took a few months, it took maybe 2 or 3 months to get her really ready that they could then focus on the cancer. And they sent her for a PET scan. The PET scan results came back saying that the tumour was isolated and they were quite happy about that. They thought, we can take this out and give you a treatment plan and everything will be good. So what happened when she went for the treatment, when she went, by the way, she's been living down in Spain, so we live quite remotely, or she lives quite remotely in the countryside, and she had to do a lot of travelling for this. She had to go to Granada, between Granada and Almeria hospitals. There was lots going on, but the oncologist was in Granada, so they decided they'd operate. And when they went to do the operation, they opened her up, they discovered that the tumour had gone through the chest cavity and attached itself to the aorta. So they couldn't treat her, they couldn't touch her. They sewed her back up and basically said to her, we need to chat, this is quite serious, it's much more serious than we thought. So they offered her treatment as in chemotherapy to maybe reduce it, but they didn't offer her a solution. They said to her it was terminal and they offered her palliative care. She was very brave. She asked the oncologist, how will the treatment be? Will the chemotherapy make me sick? Will I lose my hair? There were 2 questions that she was really concerned about. And they told her the chemotherapy would be very aggressive, so she would be very sick. And then she asked, well, is this going to fix me? Is this going to get rid of it? And they said no, it wasn't going to happen. They didn't see how they could achieve that with the attachment to the aorta. So she refused the chemotherapy. Her words, again, very brave. There was no vanity involved, but she said, I don't want to lose my hair and then have my head down the toilet bowl for 6 months and then die in anyway. I'd rather take my chances and go the way I'm going. So she left her at that. She actually had to sign papers to say she wasn't taking the treatment, and she came home. And myself being an alternative therapist for many years, I'd been looking a lot at cannabis medicine. I'd been working with CBD oils at my clinic for 2 years, and I'd been seeing a lot of good information and stories around cancer. So I looked back in and I took it on board Rick Simpson's protocol. Because we lived in Spain, or we're living in Spain, I'm part-time back and forward, but Geraldine has been there for a long time, and we were able to grow some plants. You're allowed to grow up to 3 plants yourself. So we got friends involved, we got ourselves involved, and we got enough plants grown to make a good amount of oil. And we started, when we got the plants grown and the oil made, we started a program of 1 gram a day in a suppository form, because we couldn't give it to Geraldine orally, and for other reasons. She's 71, she's had health issues with a problem called myasthenia gravis, which can turn you basically into a rag doll. So we couldn't afford to allow her to relax that much on a high, on a cannabis high. So when giving it in suppository form, she didn't have to deal with that end of it. We gave her 1 gram a day, and we kept her on it for 9 months. And after the 9 months, we decided to have her retested. And we didn't go back to the hospital to do scans, because, again, I'm reading all the time about how they can be dangerous with cancer. So what we did was we got some thermal imaging photography done in a clinic in Marbella. And those images get sent to doctors in America, and they go through them. They never met Geraldine, but they had a full history. She's had illness going back about 15 years, so we gave them everything, every last bit of information we gave to them, and they sent back the report with no mention of her lungs. And by the way, just so I didn't say this, the tumour the lung was on, the tumour was on, sorry, the oncologist told her other lung was a waste of time. It was so badly damaged from smoking. Now, she'd given up cigarettes about 30 years ago, but the oncologist actually said to her, that lung, her words were, that lung's not even worth talking about. So she had that going on in the lung that wasn't sick. So that was there as well. She also had a big cyst on her kidney that they were very concerned about. But when we got the scan done, the thermal imaging scan, and sent that away, the report came back and there was no mention of the kidney, no mention of her lungs, no mention of a tumour, no mention of the heart or the aorta. So we asked, why isn't this being spoken about? You've read the reports. And the doctor came back and he said, what tumour are you talking about? There is no tumour. He also said there's no sick lung, and there was no cyst on the kidney. And this was all done with no treatment other than Rick Simpson's protocol with cannabis oil. She had no other medication whatsoever. When she came out after the operation, she was on morphine for 1.5 weeks. And once we started giving her the cannabis, we were able to cut the morphine. The morphine was cut in like a 24-hour period. She didn't need it anymore. She wasn't in pain.
Hi, my name is Caroline Condon. I'm Alex Spicer's fiance. Alex had epilepsy all his life. He had 2 brain surgeries, and after the second brain surgery, he was on another medication. He was on medication 2,200 milligram per day, which was an awful lot. Then he went out on the streets and bought cannabis to make medical cannabis oil to reduce his seizures and help him. And he was able to cut his medication with the oil down to 700 a day. Alex went to see his neurologist, which is Professor Norma Delante, and asked him to write for a license to Simon Harris or Leo Vacra, which he also got there. Then he went campaigning for himself to try and get the license as well. Now, he got the license in 2018, March. Unfortunately, he had a fall in Drogheda and he died. Now, it was a little too late for it to come, and still hasn't come. So God has taken Alex away, and he never seen his prescription.
There's only 7 licenses after being granted in this country, to the best of my knowledge as we speak. 7 people in this country out of nearly 5 million have licenses for medical cannabis. But how many people need it? How many people are contacting their consultants and being kicked back that they can't get it, that they can't access it, that the consultants don't know? Well, Simon Harris, Leo Varadkar, this is what you need to do. You need to open your ears and listen to the people out there who are dying on their legs.
So there are many reasons for making this film, but probably the most important one right now is to get people to tell their story, to get you to tell your story. There are 2 types of people involved in this. The people who are in desperate need of profound medicinal intervention through cannabis, and people who can advocate for that, support that, fight for that. Doesn't matter which side you're on. Share your story, share your capacity, reach out. Take up your phone, record a home video, post it here, or contact patientsofcannabis.com. No matter which side you're on, the only way we're going to change this archaic, ignorant law and become the remarkable people that we are, to protect the most vulnerable people that we are, is if we come together and change that law. Patientsofcannabis.com.
Let us seek our lovers to hear things they're saying to each other. Well, if life was a fairy tale, every word would come true. And as you lie here by my side, I'd whisper, I love you, babe. Don't tickle me there, baby. The sun is a honey pot, and my love's a busy bee. And as you lie here by my side, we are sharing the same dream. Well, if life was a fairy tale, every word would come true, and love would last forever through these days and nights so blue. Sail on, silver moon. Sail on, sail on, sail on. Sail on, silver moon. Sail on, sail on, sail on. Sail on, silver moon. Sail on, sail on, sail on. Sail on. When I see a shining flame falling through this burning night, I'd always think of you and wishing everything was so alright.